Hello, welcome to Astronautics for Exploit. This is Dr. Ayenshola Ogundele. First space race, the 20th century and Cold War era space race 1.0. The focus points are as follows. First space race and first space race timeline and achievements. The first space race, the 20th century and Cold War period of space race 1.0, ushered in era of government-led space exploration. It took place between the 1950s and 1990s. During Space Race 1.0, the focus was on national security and scientific exploration. The competition was between the United States and the Soviet Union with the purpose of achieving superior spaceflight capability. Several technological advancements were achieved in the first space race. Examples are Sputnik 1, Sputnik 2, Explorer 1, Score, Luna 1, the first man to reach space, the first man to walk on the moon, Apollo-Soyuz mission, and a host of others. On October 4, 1957, the world's first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, was launched by the Soviet Union. The Sputnik 1 goal was to test the satellite reliability that could be adapted to future projects, to determine atmospheric density from its lifetime in orbit, and to verify the satellite pressurization scheme. First space race. The first space race, a 20th century space age characterized by government-led space exploration and Cold War rivalry between the United States and Soviet Union, is dated back to August 2, 1955, when the Soviet Union responded to the US announcement of the intention to launch artificial satellites. As at the commencement of the Cold War, the two spacefaring nations were developing cutting-edge technologies that will help national security and political superiority. The picture here illustrates artist's impression showing Rosetta over Comet 67P. The space race led to launching of artificial satellites and space probes to the Moon, Venus, and Mars, and human space voyages in low Earth orbit and lunar missions. After the end of the Cold War in 1991, the United States and Russia have cooperated in space with the Shuttle-Mir program and the International Space Station. Starlink satellites stacked together before deployment on 24 May 2019 is illustrated in this picture. First space race timeline and achievements. The timeline is as follows, and the various achievements: Sputnik 1, Sputnik 2, Explorer 1, Score, Luna 1, the first man to reach space, the first civilian and first woman in space, the first successful voyage to the planet Mars, the first man to walk on the moon, the first human crewed spacecraft to reach the moon, the first space station, and Apollo-Soyuz mission. On October 4, 1957, the Soviet Union successfully launched the first Earth artificial satellite, known as Sputnik 1. It was about the size of a beach ball, weighed about 83.6 kilograms, and it took about 98 minutes to orbit the Earth on its elliptical orbit. Tracking and studying of Sputnik 1 from Earth provided scientists with valuable information. The launch of Sputnik 1 raised the Cold War tensions and led to the first space race. Sputnik 1 spacecraft is illustrated in this picture. Sputnik 2, second spacecraft to orbit Earth. Sputnik 2, launched on November 3, 1957, was the second spacecraft to orbit Earth and the first to carry a living creature, a dog named Laika, into space. It contained several compartments for radio transmitters, a telemetry system, a programming unit, a regeneration and temperature control system for the cabin and scientific instruments. Laika was fitted with electrodes and blood pressure sensors to monitor her life signs. Two spectrophotometers were on board for measuring solar radiation. She died after a few hours in orbit from overheating and stress. The picture here shows robust quantum cryptography It showed the satellite. Now, the Explorer 1. The US entered the space race by launching Explorer 1 on 1st February 1958, the first US satellite to reach orbit. Explorer 1 carried experimental equipment and was the first spacecraft to detect Van Allen radiation belts. Explorer 1 was equipped with a cosmic ray detector, a gigacanter, and wire-gauge detector to measure radiation, charged particles, and micrometeorite impacts. The picture here illustrates artist's concept of Explorer 1 in orbit. SCORE is another example of achievement of the first space race. Signal communication by orbiting relay equipment was the world's first purpose-built communication satellite. It was launched aboard an American Atlas rocket on December 18, 1958. SCORE provided the second test of a communication relay system in space, with the first being by Pioneer 1. SCORE provided the first broadcast of a human voice from space and the first successful use of the Atlas as a launch vehicle. The picture here shows Atlas B missile being prepared to launch SCORE satellite. Luna 1 was the first spacecraft to reach the vicinity of Earth's moon, the first spacecraft to leave Earth's orbit, and the first to be placed in heliocentric orbit, intended as a moon impactor. Luna 1 was launched as part of the Soviet lunar program on January 2, 1959. Luna 1 was designed to impact the moon, delivering two metallic pennants with the Soviet code of arms that were included into its payload package. It also had 6 instruments to study the moon upon its approach. Interplanetary Station Luna 1 exhibited in the Cosmos Pavilion is shown in this picture. The first man to reach space, Yuri Gagarin, from the Soviet Union, was the first human in space. His vehicle, Vostok 1, circled Earth at a speed of 27,000 km per hour, with the flight lasting 108 minutes. Vostok's entry was controlled by a computer. Traveling on Vostok 1, Gagarin completed one orbit of Earth on 12 April 1961, with the flight taking 108 minutes. By achieving this major milestone for the Soviet Union amid the space race, he became an international celebrity and was awarded many medals and titles. The picture here illustrates Yuri Gagarin, the first man to reach space, the first civilian and first woman in space. The first woman to travel in space was Soviet cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova. On 16 June 1963, Tereshkova was launched on a solo mission aboard the spacecraft Vostok 6. She spent more than 70 hours orbiting the Earth, 2 years after Yuri Gagarin's first human-crewed flight in space. Valentina Tereskova's mission was a dual flight. Fellow cosmonaut Valery Bishko launched on Vostok 5 on 14 June 1963. 2 days later, Tereskova was launched. The picture here illustrates the first civilian and first woman in space, a Soviet cosmonaut. The first successful voyage to the planet Mars was the Mariner 4 mission launched by NASA, which performed the flyby of the planet on July 14, 1965, sending back the first close-up images of the Martian surface, marking a significant milestone in planetary exploration. Mariner 4 was designed to conduct close-up scientific observations of Mars and to transmit the observations to the Earth. Other mission objectives were to perform field and particle measurements in interplanetary space in the vicinity of Mars. The picture here shows Mariner 4 spacecraft. The first man to walk on the moon. Apollo 11 was a spaceflight conducted by the United States from July 16 to July 24, 1969. It marked the first time that humans landed on the moon. Commander Neil Armstrong and lunar module pilot Buzz Aldrin landed the Apollo lunar module Eagle on July 20, 1969, and Armstrong became the first person to step onto the moon's surface 6 hours and 39 minutes later on July 21. Aldrin joined him 19 minutes later, and they spent about 2¼ hours together exploring the site they had named Tranquility Base upon landing. The picture here illustrates astronaut Neil Armstrong, commander of the Apollo 11 lunar mission, in his spacesuit. The first human crew spacecraft to reach the moon, Apollo 8, between December 21st to 27, 1968, was the first crew spacecraft to leave Earth's gravitational sphere of influence and the first human spacecraft to reach the moon. The crew orbited the moon 10 times without landing and then returned to Earth. The three astronauts were the first humans to see and photograph the first side of the moon and Earthrise. The picture here illustrates Earthrise taken from Apollo 8 by William Anders. The first space station. On April 19, 1971, the Soviet Union launched the world's first space station, Soyuz. 6 improved Soyuz were launched during the next 10 years. The Soyuz were designed to make human presence in space routine and continuous. In addition to doing scientific research and spacecraft maintenance, cosmonauts tested equipment that will make space station more habitable. Soyuz, the world's first space station, is illustrated in this picture. Apollo-Soyuz mission was the first crewed International Space Station mission carried out jointly by the United States and Soviet Union on July 15, 1975. Millions of people around the world watched on television as the American Apollo spacecraft docked with a Soviet capsule. The project and its handshake in space was a symbol of cooperation. The successful Apollo-Soyuz test project paved the way for future international partnership. Apollo-Soyuz command module is illustrated in this picture. For more information, contact Astronautics for Exploits. You've been watching and listening to First Space Race, the 28th Century and Cold War Era Space Race 1.0, presented by Dr. Ayenshola Ogundele, with the focus point First Space Race and First Space Race Timeline and Achievements. Thank you.